anybody gets anywhere close to the Comedy Circle, those are the two guys I drop because they're the ones I know.
And we are connecting to YouTube right now just to let you guys know.
Okay.
But it'll be pre-show here, so I'm going to get that up. Okay, very good.
You were right. You were right.
Right about what?
It's refreshing that you're starting to say
I called Mike right before you showed up, and I said, "No, we'll get on. We will be
on time.
Introing before 11:15 today."
If I hadn't gone into story time, we would.
No.
No. Yes, blame him. Blame him, not me. Keep it there.
Gabe's a perfectionist. I love him for it, like to the truest extent, because it makes our show look so good. But because he can't let certain things go,
I got to tweak.
We're a little bit.
I got to play.
There's things.
Yeah, and which is fine. If that's the sacrifice I'm making because we're an internet show and we don't have a time slot, I'm okay with it.
Good.
But then you get, cool shit like this.
Yeah, like the dancing robot.
Yeah, or the kids, my freak out kid I like too. All right. Hey, to anyone who might be joining us, which we're still going to connect to Facebook. For those of you joining us on YouTube, go watch it over there.
Yeah.
No, we'll be starting the show very shortly.
Are we getting comments from both YouTube and Facebook now?
Sometimes, yeah. From YouTube has just started to kick in. YouTube always comes last.
Well,
people just aren't there really in that.
Yeah,
mode.
not during the live.
It's mostly for the to be indexed with Google.
Yep. So yeah, head on over to Facebook. This is a live reaction or live response
interactive show.
Interactive show. There we go. An internationally interactive show.
That was some good alliteration.
Thank you. So yeah, head on over to Facebook, leave a comment, let us know what you guys are excited to talk about this week. And first person to guess who the man sitting all the way on the other end of the table is, we'll get a shout out.
I think it's in the title of the
video,
isn't it? So yeah.
If you can
It only takes.
If you can't guess that,
it only takes common sense, folks, which I know is not a common virtue.
Hey Nick, can we go back to the first?
No, Gabe, we cannot.
Well, I'm glad you like it. It's gonna be a fun show today.
Mike hates it.
Are we talking Jake Paul and?
No.
Oh man,
we don't have time.
I know, but there is.
He lost. It's over. There we go. We talked about it.
I don't think it's over. I mean, I want it to be over in the worst way, but
yeah, it's over.
I would like
Super
that.
Annoying.
If he would have beat Tommy and then wanted to spin that into like a Nate Diaz, like, kind of like the mixed rules thing that they were thinking about doing, sure. But he lost. It's over.
I bet he gets one more out of it.
A rematch, maybe.
And then I'm just connecting the chat, so guys, we'll be starting the show in 20 seconds.
Yippee! Did you go share, Mike?
Oh, yeah. Also, Mr. Long, if you'd like to share the show to your personal page, it's live on the Glass Half Sports show page.
Way ahead.
Thank you. I love that. Holy crap. I can't remember the last time that happened. Okay. All right, guys, the show, well, it belongs to you.
Oh, it belongs to all of us, Gabe. We've been through this 100 times.
The show belongs to the streets.
The streets? Jeez.
Yeah,
all right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another episode of Glass Half Sports. Today is Thursday, March 3rd? 2nd? 3rd?
2.
March 2nd.
February gets weird.
I know. 28 days is a short month. You never know where you're at when it ends. It's in the middle of the week every single time. Happy to have you guys with us on yet another Thursday. I am one half of your hosting duties, as always, Nick Huffman, joined by my co-host, Mike Mensing. And this week's special guest from KSTP's Channel 5, Chris Long. How you doing, guys?
Happy to be here. Busiest time of the year, best time of the year.
Yeah? What do you got going on outside of... that's keeping you so busy?
I was going to say, if you said outside of work, nothing. Getting ready for the state hockey tournament next week. Basketball in high school's winding down. The draft combine in the NHL. The Wild and Wolves are making playoff pushes. Twins are in spring training. Vikings are getting the draft. I'm out and win. What else? That's about it. Gopher basketball. Mercifully wrapping up.
Or mercifully stepping out
Well,
if you're
we got
some of their recruits, whatever that might be.
Minnesota United just getting their season underway.
Yeah, lots.
Lynx are a month away. This is biggest time of the year. We get a little breath after the Super Bowl. After Vikings end, it takes a step down. Then after Super Bowl ends, we get about 2 weeks to sort of breathe. And then boom, this time of year, it's great. And I love it. There's good busy and there's bad busy. This is good busy.
Mike, have you been good busy?
Yeah. Sorry for last week, obviously, with the snowstorm.
Yeah, we missed you guys.
We were all kind of snowed in a little bit. But it's good to be back. And like Chris said, there's a lot to talk about.
We got a lot to get through this week. Why don't you run through what we're going to do, Mikey?
Yeah, it is going to be a big show for you guys today, as always. So we're going to do our Minnesota Sports Roundup. Chris is going to join us for that. We're going to do a segment called Tag 'em or Bag 'em in the NFL. And then we have so much noteworthy news. We basically just called the segment Noteworthy News. And then we're going to roll into NFL offseason stuff, UFC, and then Dame did something in the NBA as well that we want to touch on.
Yeah, Kobe-esque the other night from the man in Portland. Mike, where can they find this show if they want to see it, either live or after?
Yeah, as always, our social medias can be found on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, YouTube. We do have a Patreon and a Twitch as well. And then we can be found on cable in the Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin Cities area on MCN6 or through your Roku app through MCN6 as well.
That's anywhere all over the world. So you could get done watching Chris Long and then just flip up one channel from Channel 5 to Channel 6. You could find us.
You guys are easier to find than we are on TV these days. You've got more avenues than we do right now.
We try to get out everywhere that we can.
Yeah,
Everywhere that we
all
can.
roads for sure.
Absolutely.
We just try to be easier to find than the Minnesota Twins are to watch a baseball game.
That is not hard to
It's
do.
extremely easy.
So yeah, and all of that is at Glass Half Sports. Hit that like bell, hit the notification button as well, so that way when we drop new content, you guys can be sure to see it. And Mike, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm
Chris,
ready.
are you ready to go?
Better be.
Let's do it. What do we got first?
Yeah, so first, Minnesota Sports Roundup, we're going to go Vikings Vision. Let's take a peek at a few draft pieces that we could be adding to the Vikings.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I know you came up with one. I came up with one. Chris is going to give his professional opinion on what he has been hearing.
Professional.
We think you're listen, we said this before the show. This is the first caller we've had on in the studio for this show. So
Dressing like this helps fool people into thinking I know what I'm talking about.
well, let's find out if it's true. Yeah, I think actually, Mike, we can start with your guy. Me and Mike pretty much just picked two prospects off the board that we really think the Vikings should be looking at heading into the draft this year. Maybe you can give us some of your feedback along the way, and then anything that you might be hearing throughout the organization as they get ready for the draft. So,
Yeah, so somebody I've had my eye on, he's realistic for us to get, is going to be Tyreek Stevenson out of the University of Miami. He's large. He's 6'1", about 215. He has long arms, and he's a man-to-man corner typically. That is definitely his strength. I see us bringing in Brian Flores, wanting to play more man-to-man coverage, leaving those corners on islands, and then bringing pressure behind it. So a few statistics to give you. His QB rating when targeted throughout his entire college career was 74.9. It's pretty dang good to me. His zone coverage rating was 79%. His man press rating was 80%. Where he struggled was tackling and run defense. That's a man-to-man corner running with a receiver down the sideline, so he's not going to be filling, an outside zone or something like that, like an Antoine Winfield. That's not his strength. His strength is to be running and mirroring receivers. He has the size to do it. He has the arm length to do it. His senior year at the University of Miami, his QB rating when targeted was 78.4. That's a shutdown corner that could help our defense immediately with the aging. And what do we have, 3 corners on roster right now?
yeah, I think there's not a whole lot of them. At least there's not a whole lot of them at depth. Chris, I mean, Brian Flores, kind of new to the scene in Minnesota. You're a little bit more involved with that than we are. Is this a guy that you think fits well into that scheme?
Brian Flores' defense in one word is going to be summed up with energy. And I almost jumped in because I'm just watching these highlights and I haven't seen a lot of him, but an energy guy. Every play, now granted the highlights are going to be didn't get beat for a touchdown, but if this is the combine and I'm watching him down there, I'm going, this is an energy guy. And that's what Brian Flores across the board is going to be. He creates chaos. It happens all the time. You see it in sports. When you have one thing and it doesn't work, you go to the complete opposite.
Yeah.
If you have the quote unquote players coach and it flames out, then you get the
hard ass
iron fist guy. And that's what they've done here. Ed Donatel was the sit back, evaluate the chessboard, make moves, react to your opponent. Flores is I don't care what they're going to do. We're going to blow it up.
I'm flipping the chessboard.
We're going to blow
on
it up. And he's speed chess as opposed to sitting there and watching it. And I think that anybody that part of the problem with trying to do the draft analysis is, and we can talk about this later a little bit. Who's still going to be here once the draft gets there? Because I think any mock draft that involves the Vikings could change dramatically in the next month,
hour by hour.
Right.
I mean, based on what they're seeing.
Yes.
They are. Me and Mike talked about it at the end of their season. Us and the New York Giants seem to be the most two volatile situations in the NFL right now. To where, you could return to a 13-win team next year. You could also win 6 games if things don't fall your way. Right. So, it's going to take a lot. I would agree. I think this is a good energy guy. He was part of that Georgia defense early on too.
Yeah.
Wasn't
So
he?
he actually played a lot his freshman and sophomore year at Georgia, and actually transferred.
Good tackle.
Yeah,
that's a good open field tackle.
He's big and strong, honestly, and runs really, really well. Has good hips. I see him being an impact player. The great thing about him too is he's evaluated at about a mid-second round right now.
Okay.
So with our 23rd pick, you're
begging for a trade down.
Move up and actually get a second-round pick. Is what I'm begging for.
Okay.
Is sit at 23, do something offensively, in my opinion. There's a center that I specifically want, actually, and then I would actually like this guy in the second round.
Okay, I think I have your answer for potentially pick 23 on the offensive side of the football, and a running back that I think is going to have to replace Dalvin Cook because he looks to be, especially with Brian Flores back now, meaning some of those defensive pieces are going to stay.
It looks like Cook is on his way out, doesn't it?
He wants his money. They're not going to give it to him in this offense,
no way
right?
to do it.
Danielle Hunter's going to get his extension under Brian Flores. You might get another year out of Pat Peterson. Dalvin Tomlinson likely going to get an extension. One of the 2 linebackers likely going to stay. Harrison Smith, his career extends under Brian Flores. Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen are likely the odd men out. So who are you going to replace that production with? Alexander Madison?
See, I love
Kenny.
that.
I do too. I do too.
I want him to get a chance, but go ahead.
I do too. I think he's one of the better backup running backs in the NFL, but they're really high on Ty Chandler. We really don't know what we have in Kenny, and both of those guys are injury. They're more slender builds. So I'm actually a big fan of Minnesota moving to where they need to get the running back that they've had for my entire life. They went from Adrian Peterson into Dalvin Cook, and I think the next step is Bijan Robinson out of Texas. He has been one of the most consistently explosive running backs in college football with a very average offensive line. In a league where you're going to have fast linebackers that flow sideline to sideline in that division because the ball gets thrown all over the yard as well. No injuries, no fumble problems. To me, this is a guy that I look at and I go, oh, that's Denver Broncos Clinton Portis style running. He might not be the fastest guy on the field, but he's going to fall forward at worst like Zeke Elliott for 4 yards every single time that you hand it to him. And with the value of running backs not being as good as he is, nobody's taking him inside the top 15. If he's there for you at 23, I think that's the perfect thing to do.
Are you a believer? And it's part of that because we could do the whole debate, where do you take a running back?
Right.
You must be a believer, if you're saying this, that running backs are now almost moving into the quarterback world, obviously a different scale, but if you can have that running back that's great out of the gate on a rookie scale, it's a game changer. And I'm with you on that because I think running back second contracts are going to be fascinating to watch over the next 5-6 years.
Absolutely.
They're not going to get paid at all.
Yeah,
They're going to get their rookie contract. They'll get a little bump. So I think you're going to see a lot of guys, running backs especially, moving immediately after that first contract.
Right.
So you almost have to look in the crystal ball and see if you're going to spend a first-round pick.
It's 5 years.
Right. And I don't think we're in a world yet where running backs, especially when you have the 3 that you mentioned, Chandler, Wongwu, Madison, I think they're fine.
Okay.
You don't have an elite running back core, but I don't think this team's biggest need is running back. And I don't know that Bijan is
transcendent.
That 10-year all-pro that's worth a hole someplace.
I actually personally agree with you as well, Chris. I think
I knew I came here for a reason.
I think Bijan Robinson is going to be an impact player for somebody. Mm-hmm. Personally, I actually see him going possibly to the Cowboys.
That would make sense.
Zeke on his way out, in my opinion, and I don't think that they're going to be able to retain Pollard.
And
I knew Tony.
And they can't afford him.
Right? So I think I could see Robinson actually falling, 2 or 3 picks past us and going to the Cowboys, actually. I think the argument that a bell cow running back wins Super Bowls anymore is kind of defunct. In the last like 10, the cap room for like dedicated to Super Bowl winning teams running backs is like typically under $2 million.
Sure.
Let's who's the Rams lead running back when they won the Super Bowl? Quick.
Cam Akers or
See, right? Boom. Stop.
Yeah.
You can't think of it.
The most expensive in the last 10
and that
years.
wasn't me knocking.
No.
I'm saying Kevin O'Connell was there, and the running back was not a key.
Yeah, right. And the most expensive running back contract on a Super Bowl winning team in the last 10 years was LeGarrette Blount, $1.75 million.
Sure.
So that's a great stat,
right?
Wow.
That's crazy, right? So I personally want us to actually shore up our offensive line to make it even easier for Alexander Madison, Wong Wu, and Chandler
Yep.
to just run through these zone schemes, right? And then you get Kirk rolling out. So I actually am looking at the University of Minnesota center, John Michael Schmitz, as our first.
I love it.
Sure.
The parallel just popped in my head. Somebody else said it. The Twins didn't necessarily make their pitching much better this offseason, but they made their defense much better, which is going to make the pitchers better.
Yeah.
That's a great point. You make your current stable of running backs better by bolstering the offensive line. Everybody, we think too much about the offensive line because today's NFL, passing.
Right.
Protect the quarterback, give him time, which Cousins needs. You're exactly right. I think you draft a huge, going to be here for his entire, hopefully Pro Bowl career lineman in that first round. It raises the value of the running backs. That's a great point.
And make it an interior center right guard, in my opinion.
Yeah, and my only counter argument to all of that is as much as we're thinking of, because the term is competitive rebuild and championship standard under Kwesi and KOC with the Vikings, I think everybody looks at this year and go, does the team need a running back this year? No. But then I think about what Ezekiel Elliott was able to do for Dak Prescott, a fourth-round quarterback that was getting playing time early in his career, and we are at the bare end of what Kirk Cousins is going to be for the Minnesota Vikings. I don't care. It might be this year. It might be the year after. But regardless, whether it's a decline in Kirk Cousins' play or having to bring up another rookie quarterback, a guy like Bijan Robinson will give this offense life when it hits those lulls that kept us all of our games close this year. If we could have Mike said it all year long, if we could have effectively marched the football down the field with a back that was going to fall forward 4 yards, we probably have more 30-point games. You don't have to focus so much on the defense then, right? The defense could have been as bad as it would have been, and we would have had far less one-score games, right? So I do think there's an argument to be made of how do you want to, there's 100 different ways to skin a cat. How do you want to do it?
I see your point, and he is definitely a game breaker, right? You don't need great offensive linemen for what he can do. I personally just think that the NFL is trending more so towards the San Francisco 49ers formula of great defense, good offensive line, control the football, than it is more so greatest show on turf, surround athletes with some
But they went and got Christian McCaffrey this year, and even down to their third quarterback, were in an NFC championship game.
But the card I will play is Isaiah Pacheco was a 7th-round pick.
Yep. No, totally understand.
Now, is that common? No. But it's there. And you're going to find guys in mid-rounds that can be okay if you feel you need more depth.
So my question for you is there a name that you've maybe circled in your head that you can share with us?
I won't lie, and it wasn't that I didn't prep, but I'm trying to make up an excuse. I need to see, before I start trying to do mock drafts, and I was
what
looking
the
at one over here.
roster does.
I don't know what they're going to need. And maybe more importantly, based on what we heard, and I don't want to open this can of worms because we could do a whole hour on this, with what Kirk Cousins people are now saying. I want long term. I'm not going to renegotiate. I don't want another short.
And the Vikings aren't going to.
You don't think? But if somebody who signs the checks, which maybe had some influence last time they had to make this decision, pushes them in that direction, that changes everything.
Right.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then, and we're 1 year with Kirk Cousins. Well, okay, then is it we tear it down this year? And whatever.
Yep.
Or, okay, we've got one last chance with this guy who was pretty darn good last year.
Yeah.
We need to make our push this year because next year will be the teardown year.
Yeah. It's interesting. Eventually we're going to find out, but I keep looking at all these teams at the top. I see 3 really good quarterbacks at the top of the draft. I see about 5 teams that need quarterbacks.
They're not, unless they trade
world,
they're not drafting.
I'm not saying that the Vikings will, But I will tell you the opportunity is going to be there because I think there's about 7 seats on the quarterback carousel this offseason, and I think there's about 5 spots that can be filled by guys through the draft or Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers. That makes Kirk Cousins a valuable trade piece that you can actually look into.
And you'd have to go through all the permutations of what a trade could look like.
Right.
If you know this is going to be the last year of Kirk Cousins, okay, trade some assets and get the guy who's going to replace him next year.
Sure.
Now that's a tough all in for a second-year GM, but if it's there,
true,
and there's a chance to trade next year 1 and this year's 2 to get up and take one of those top 3 QBs.
You know what you just said about just that's a tough sell for a second-year GM. I think that's a really good point. Just thinking, most GMs and head coaches that are kind of tied like KOC and Kwesi are also tied to the hip to a quarterback. Mm-hmm. And I feel like
they are not tied
in
to
the
Kirk
first
Cousins.
few years, you kind of got to tie yourself to that quarterback. And this offseason is going to show us whether or not they want it to be Kirk. That's a really good, yeah.
I would agree with that.
I think that's going to be an interesting story to watch unfold for sure. With that, anything else for Vikings, guys?
I ain't got anything.
I gut feeling, a lot of cuts are coming.
Oh, yeah.
I think a lot of cuts are coming.
I think the roster for 2023 is going to look a lot different.
And I don't know that means it will be worse necessarily because Brian Flores' system, he's going to keep Eric Kendricks as a good example. If Brian Flores thinks that he's a pivotal guy and needs to keep him, they can find a way. Right. But he's obviously one of the guys along with Cook, along with Thielen. It's going to be an interesting summer.
If you guys don't mind, I got a question about the Flores thing. I didn't hear anything about his relationship with O'Connell. Like, is this a hiring that puts any pressure on him in the, of course not in the beginning, but if he's 500 if it's 5-5, no?
It's a good question. I think Brian Flores is one and done. I think he's a head coach next year somewhere, and I think the Vikings know that, and if that means he comes in and helps them succeed this year, great. Cool. He was this close to getting a head coach job. He got all kinds of interviews, and
he turned him down.
I was going to say, if you believe him, and you have no reason not to, he could have had the Arizona job. So I think it just wasn't a good fit. I think he gets a head coach job without question next year.
Yeah, potentially.
Unless the Vikings defense somehow is god-awful.
So I personally actually think that he might be a 2 to 3 year window.
Well, there's something to be said for let's do this.
Yeah.
If there's some forward progress.
Yeah.
If the Vikings regress and go, I hate doing
if they go 5-12.
Yeah, I can't do 17.
Right.
Then he's out.
Yeah.
But sure, if they have another 13-win season.
I think, let's say they go 11-6 and defense is middle of the road. I think he might even stay around one more year.
Yeah.
You look at the horizon of the division. Like Kwesi's always talking about the competitive horizon of everything. Oh, look, the Packers are going to be in transition. The Bears are in a rebuild, and I'm sorry, nobody knows what Justin Fields looks like in a real offense.
Right.
Okay. And then you look at the Lions. Sure, that's great, but at some point you're going to have to figure out, is Dan Campbell like a real head coach for a Super Bowl winning team? Yeah. And can you do it with Jared Goff, or are you really looking at replacing him? And then they're in a rebuild. So for the next 2 to 3 years, it's the Vikings division to lose.
And to answer Gabe's question, from what I've heard, from what's been being said, is Kevin O'Connell, Kwesi, and Brian Flores is now the 3-headed monster.
Yeah.
Like, they're all working together, sitting together, and collaborating together.
Did they have a relationship before this, as far as you know?
Brian Flores was on staff in New England when Kevin O'Connell was drafted in 2003.
Yep.
I just wanted to see how much of a sports dork you were. Good job.
They said at the intro press conference, they knew each other. They didn't work together.
Right.
But they knew each other, but they both said the same thing. We know a lot of the same people. I mean, the coaching community is only so big. When they called and talked, when they called and talked to each other, they match up.
Yeah.
They match up. They are birds of a feather.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Both cut from that Billy B cloth.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's all a really good fit front office wise, and that's the first time I felt super confident in our coaching staff in a while.
Since Denny Green.
I mean, when Zimmer and Leslie were here, I felt pretty confident. It was the offensive side of the ball that was lacking.
Fair enough.
Throughout Zimmer's entire tenure.
Yes.
So let's turn our attention to the Minnesota Wild, who have been on a hot streak lately. And we're going to talk about the hot streak a little bit. So a lot of games have been 2-1 or 1-0 going into overtime, something like that.
I was going to say, when you say 2-1, that's 1-1 with a shootout.
Yeah, with a shootout win or an overtime goal. So what was it? We've gotten points 7 out of the last 9.
Points in 7 straight.
Points in 7 straight.
And I think it's 9 of 10.
And 9 of 10.
Ooh.
So we are looking a little bit different. We're sitting second place in the Central Division right now.
Look at the whole conference. That's my job is to cover these teams. I looked at the conference standings yesterday, and I was shocked.
Really?
It's so tightly packed. We've been kind of talking about the Western Conference and the NBA like this for a month.
Yeah.
The NHL's now, and the loser points doing that, it's so tightly packed that this point streak that the Wild have been on rocketed them up. As of yesterday, I don't know where they are now. They were 2 points out of the 1 seed in the West. And the slump that it felt like they had, it seemed like there's no way that was accurate. But it was, go to conference. It blew my mind.
I got it coming up, guys, to put on screen.
I just, I don't watch it every day. And I didn't see what happened last night. I know Vegas played a late game that I fell asleep watching.
So we are
now
4 points out of.
So Vegas won last night.
We're 4 points out of first place.
Yeah.
The 1 seed. That's the same face I made yesterday when I saw it. Now, but here,
and LA has a game in hand, right?
I'll tie it into the brand. That's the glass half full. How far are they from 9th?
Not that far. Not that far. They're in the same
7.
spot. Yeah.
Right.
They're in the same spot the Wolves are in.
The
right?
Western Conference, because the top teams had a little bit of backslide, and like Colorado's on fire. The Wild are on fire, so it's compacted everything. It's going to be fun, but we start talking about the trade deadline coming up Friday, which I think you'll probably bring up here.
Yeah.
They're definitely not sellers, which 3 weeks ago
you thought they
was
would
not
be.
a lock.
Yeah.
Right. I couldn't believe yesterday when I looked and I said they're 2 points out of the 1 seed. Now there's some games in hand.
Over the last 10,
there it is.
they're tied for the best record in the West.
And that win, too, again, is deceiving because you see it. Yeah, okay, so points in 9 of the last 10. I was right on that. Yeah. But look at the goal differential, like
10
compared to Edmonton.
Man,
it's the Vikings.
I was going to say they are the hockey Vikings. That is 100%. One thing that I thought was really encouraging that kind of was a big part of this whole thing was Kirill Kaprizov's that 25 minutes left in that game. They're down 2 goals. He puts all 3 points on the board. Like me and Mike had talked about it earlier this season. There are going to be times where as they shuffle the deck to get things right around him, he's going to have to be what carries the franchise. And it felt like when they were losing some games early, he was playing well, but he wasn't getting that specific. Like he wasn't making the play that wins you the game,
when
right?
We talked about it. It was like that's what separated him from being in the top 10 or the top 5 of like NHL players. Is can he say, okay, tonight we're winning this hockey game and put in 3 goals?
And now it feels like even if it is really just a 2-man show between Kirill Kaprizov and Philip Gustafsson in goal, the Wild can win a Stanley Cup that way. You know what I mean? It's like, now, is that repeatable over a series when they start to game plan? Can they isolate him? Yeah, that's what he struggled with. That's his next step postseason play-wise, right? But very encouraging to watch him go, nope, we're not losing another hockey game this way, and be like, give me the puck, and just go. Just go.
They have points in 9 of 10 and have not played well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Gustafsson on the back, Kaprizov in the front.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit before we started to roll. If you can do that now, and the schedule has not been simple. Right. They've had that 7-game homestand they had was nasty, and they survived it. If everybody else, if somehow Marcus Johansson unlocks Matt Boldy, everybody keeps talking about unlocking Matt Boldy. I think Matt Boldy needs to.
He hasn't had a goal in 15 games.
I think Matt Boldy needs to. And I'm big on Matt Boldy. Loved him when they drafted him. I think he's got to find something, but maybe that. So if that line picks up a little bit, if you're winning 9 out of 10, your expectation is to win every night, and the goalie helps massively. If they can finally emerge from this slump offensively that they've been in, they can be, I don't know if they will be, but they can be very dangerous. And I feel way more bullish on them in terms of making a playoff run now than I did, when they had their big surge, kind of going into Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah. Now, so the Wild kind of shuffled the deck already a little bit. They've made a few moves here, it sounds like, but most of them are more focused, especially with one of the more key pieces that they've had so far. Probably not going to be ready come playoff time. What do you think of the moves that are coming up or that they've made? And what do you think now with them being in this spot is potential? Because, there's other big trades obviously going on around the league.
Marcus Johansson's not going to come in and score 4 goals a night. We have an update?
Sort of, not really. I figure you know it, but it says they just put this tweet out 3 hours ago that we signed Hunter Haidt. Have you ever heard of him? Anything going on there?
Must be a college guy who just finished his college
He probably
season.
just signed his-
would be
yeah.
my guess.
Yeah.
Based
Ontario
on the-
Hockey League is what I saw.
okay.
That's the one thing I saw, but I don't know that league. So
Is he? I don't know Hunter Haidt's name.
okay, yeah,
But
he's
I'm
a
more
forward.
interested in seeing
Had a lot
the-
of points, but
I didn't
that's
see
why
the
I-
note from Joe Smith on the right that yes, indeed, Marcus Johansson will be playing with Matt Boldy and Joel Eriksson.
Yeah.
Yes.
I hadn't seen that
At least to
yesterday.
start, yeah.
Marcus Johansson, fast. That's the catch.
Yeah.
He's going to help with team speed. He's quick. He's not going to score 2-3 goals a night,
Ooh.
but he's going to help. Like I said, I think Matt Boldy do what he does and take some of the heat off Joel Eriksson, who's one of the best two-way players. in
Right.
the
Speed
entire
just
league.
opens up the whole ice, right?
Yeah.
Gus Nyquist, if he comes back healthy, it's a weird trade because it's a guy that's not going to play at all in the regular season and is expected to be back for the postseason. He's a good player. He's a really good player.
Yeah.
I think he can, if healthy, he can be a difference maker. And again, he's not going to be Kaprizov level, but it's addition by subtraction. Put those two in the lineup. Johansson's a top 6 guy. Nyquist is a middle 6 guy. 2 guys are going to drop off. And the Wild depth has been good. Brandon Duham has been hot.
Yeah.
Mason Shaw is a perfect, right now, 3/4th line guy. He can come in, elbow
Right.
somebody in the face, or maybe get a goal. You have good players that are going. It makes Marco Rossi harder to bring up. It makes Sammy Walker harder to bring up. That's a good thing. That's
Yeah.
adding depth because someone's going to get hurt.
Yep.
If they make a playoff run, there's 40 games left in the season.
Right.
I'm not good at math. Roughly, well, maybe more. That gives you depth that they have not had and didn't have. So
Yeah.
these other guys that we're mentioning, now the problem is you don't want guys not playing. You're not going to send. They didn't waive Sam Steele, which kind of surprised me. I thought he'd be the odd man out, but okay, so is he just going to be a healthy scratch? Ryan Reeves scores the other night. You know, he's a guy that, depending
Alert
on
the
the
press.
game, could be a healthy scratch.
Yeah.
It gives them more. I mean, it's a no kidding, Chris. More guys gives them more choices, but it moves 2 guys down
Yeah.
that maybe aren't ready to be middle 6, aren't ready to be top 6.
Yeah.
And I like Johansson's fine. I'm a Capitals fan. I've watched him play for them. He's fine. Definitely has a place. But Nyquist is the one that I like, and I could see potentially if they. Everything depends on what the salary cap's going to do because they're still a mess. But these are good trades. They got them for nothing.
Yeah.
They got them for nothing.
I would agree.
And actually, that's why I don't think that we make another move.
I don't either.
Because
Okay.
I think the salary cap and, unless it is an absolute rental.
There's nobody
but
else
I don't think that.
There's
Yeah.
nobody else there.
And not anybody that when you look at Dean Evison and the way that he likes to negotiate, or and Bill Gunner and the way they like to negotiate and go like that's a wild, like there's a very evident type of player that they go get at this point in the season. And I think if it's odd because we don't have a Minnesota sports team that has ever been like this, but they're kind of saying, you know what, Carrillo's going to get us to the playoffs. Let's make sure when we get there, he's got everything he needs to succeed. And if that's the game plan they're going to roll with, I'm cool with it. But now you just got to make sure that during the regular season, you don't look too far ahead.
Right.
And if you're not looking to, you still got to watch. Like last year, we talked about it. Do you lose a game here or win a game here in an attempt to get, home ice advantage or a specific matchup and things like that, if that's how you're going to do it?
Yep.
So,
Yeah, I think go Wild. It's a tight Western
Go
Conference, and
Wild.
It's gonna be
something
fun.
to watch.
Can I ask another kind of wild, just a broader wild question?
Wild question.
Is it's going to be a really wild question. Is Kaprizov? We all know that the rumors that he's womanizing and drinking too much. No, actually, I'm just curious what kind of guy he is in the locker room. Is he truly the center of the team for years forward? Like, is he a leader in that way as well?
I asked. It's like we set this up. I asked that question because I don't have a feel for it. Because you can small talk a lot of the guys. You
Yeah.
can't small talk Kirill. He does with his teammates. We know that. He just won't small talk with us, which is cool. It's not about how you get along with the media, and I'm not ever going to say it is. But I'll get a feel when Marcus Foligno. We knew immediately when he walked in the locker room. Oh, this guy's going to be a good piece. You'd see how he interacted with the other players. Kaprizov, because we can kind of communicate with them directly, but he and Zuccarello are a 2-man show, and they sit in a corner and yuck it up and laugh, and they're great. So I didn't have a sense for it. Long way of me telling you, I asked Dean Evison and a couple players the same question about 3 weeks ago. We see what Kirill's doing on the ice. is he also growing as a leader in the locker room? Is he, the popular guy, the guy that's putting his arms around the room? And Dean Evison said an interesting thing. He said he's not becoming that. He was that right away. He said the only thing that stopped him at first was the language barrier.
Sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
And he still tried to do it. And as his English is getting much better, and they'll all tell you, you can see when you're talking, it happens a lot with the Twins, when a lot of the players that speak Spanish, they're real careful. They want to make sure they understand exactly what you're asking. But you see it in their eyes. They know what you're asking.
Mm-hmm.
You ask it, and they go, okay. And then the interpreter says it again. Kaprizov's gotten more of that, where he almost, every now and then, he'll try to answer a question in English.
Yeah.
But he just wants to make sure he knows what's being asked and that his comments are being relayed properly. But you get the point that language barrier is not as much a problem. And Evanson even said it a couple years ago. He goes, he's got you guys fooled. He knows what's going on. He's got it down. So, very long way of answering the question. I think he is far more of a leader in the room than we would think or than we see, just because it's harder to see because of the language barrier.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly. I think the minute we got him, the whole organization went LeBron pretty much with Kirill.
Yeah.
And since then, every player that's come through has been for Kirill. Every coaching decision that it might have I don't know if maybe it got lost in the contract negotiation somewhere where maybe people were like, does he really want to be here? Whatever the case may be. But I have never gotten the slightest hint that he isn't the guy for Minnesota and that leader for them.
Story about the contract negotiation that I'll remember is they get the deal done and they're trying to race back here to announce it. I don't remember the exact circumstances, but he and Billy Guerin were, let's see if I remember this correctly, driving from Miami, dropping someone off at Fort Lauderdale, which is on the way to West Palm where they were flying out. And they're in the same car together, and they had to drop somebody off to make this plane that they were barely going to make, and then they realized the guy they dropped off had the rental car keys in his pocket. So he calls him and was like, don't turn that car off. They had to go back to Fort Lauderdale. And Kurl's there. That doesn't happen if there's bad blood after the contract they agreed to 48 hours earlier, that they're doing this cannonball run up the east coast of Florida together.
Right.
And just hearing that story relieved me of thinking, well, okay, this was a contentious contract and there's going to be some embers that are going to burn.
Sure.
No, if these guys are,
going up and
sharing
down
this
and-
trip and Billy's recounting it in a funny way, and hey, you guys will love the story. If it was, well, I'm glad we got that done. That wouldn't have happened.
Right.
So I don't
Totally
want to
agree.
read too much into that story, but
Can I ask one that, like, this is, if you don't want to answer it, it's fine. I'm just truly curious about this with, because I've seen this happen with Ovechkin, right? Where people are trying to press him on the
my
Putin
guy,
stuff.
careful, he's my guy. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He is the guy.
Are you feeling any, like, is there pressure in media for you guys where it's like, because, I guess I'll say my position on it. I think it's kind of unfair to put the players in those positions, in a sense, even though I can play into the emotions of it. Is there pressure on you guys not to ask those questions, not to, put him in a position where you could muddy our star and then you lose access or whatever kind of stuff?
Well, remember, he had trouble getting back here after the summer.
Right.
He was at home.
Yep.
Sorry, I think my...
Yeah, okay. I was hearing just super faint.
That's totally me,
speaker.
the amateur here. Sorry.
Okay, no, it's okay. It was very faint, so I couldn't.
It's still going.
That's all right. Take a second and do it.
There you go.
There we go.
There you go.
Working with professionals on that.
Yeah.
Sorry. I thought it was... Yes.
I don't know how you guys do it over there.
So Kirill had trouble getting back, and credit to Michael Russo with The Athletic. He was on the story and way out in front of it and had it. We were trying and just could not. This is international intrigue stuff, and we couldn't get the story, and he nailed it. If anybody was going to have quote-unquote bad... The difference between Ovechkin and Kirill is Ovechkin has been so famous for so long. He was buddies with Vladimir Putin before he became what he is now.
Yep.
Both of them, I guess that. I don't get the sense that Kaprizov has any kind of relationship. So Ovechkin got real quiet real quick and kind of had to. I just don't get the sense that Kirill's interested in. Ovechkin's very gregarious, and you saw him doing backstrokes in the fountains with the Stanley Cup. I think if the Wild win the Stanley Cup, Kirill will not be doing the backstroke in a fountain in St. Paul. Be cool, but I don't think he will.
I think he puts it at center ice and goes back to the X and starts shooting goals for next season.
Exactly, and back to the gym.
Yeah.
Right. So I think you've got two very different personalities, but he was very clear. To answer your question, there will be times where you'll get, and this isn't Wild specific, this is any team, you'll get them, they'll say, hey, we don't want to talk about X. Mm-hmm. And we all go, okay. Sometimes, at some point, there's ways to work around it, and if the player wants to discuss something, you give them that opportunity. It was very clear from the jump, Kirill didn't want to, wasn't interested in it, didn't want any part of it, and we found that out because when he returned, he and Matt Zuccarello did a two-man press conference, and any question that even came close to it, Zuccarello would jump in as the big brother and say, guys, we're only talking hockey here today. We're only talking. And frustrating as that was as a journalist, it was actually cool to see.
Yeah.
Again, telling you about the kind of relationship those
Absolutely.
players have. So,
Absolutely.
No, I'm not worried that politics will, unless he goes back home and gets stuck for another offseason, I don't think it'll be a problem.
Right. What's up, Jordan?
Who's the funniest in all the Minnesota sports locker rooms? Who's the funniest person right now?
Ooh, wasn't ready for that one.
That's a good question.
Like,
And I won't bother you anymore after this. I just had to get those out.
Anthony Edwards.
What?
Yeah, I have. You know what? I've heard that if you check it around the Gabe for some reason has this anti-ant viewpoint after some of the things
Not
that happened.
for some reason.
After what happened
Don't
this
forget,
summer.
He's 21 years old.
Right. That's
Right.
what I said.
What did
And
you do when you were 21?
We were hearing some of Gabe's
can't even
stories
talk about
earlier,
it.
right? That might have been when
too.
Gabe was hanging around the Minnesota hockey team.
No, for sure. Right.
But if you check into the rest of NBA media, everybody says Ant's my favorite person to talk to because he's just the most jovial, love of the game kind of guy.
I'm trying to think if there's others, and I'm slighting somebody. The Vikings have a couple guys that are like down low, funny. Like Brian O'Neill's quiet and chill.
Okay.
He's a funny dude.
Okay.
Christian Darasaw is pretty funny.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of wild guys. They're out there.
Hockey's usually the funniest sport,
They are.
I think.
Or twin, like it just twins is because I haven't talked to any of them in 6 months.
Yeah, right.
Correa's pretty funny.
Oh, really?
Huh. That surprises me a little bit.
That doesn't surprise me. I feel like leaders are typically a little lighter hearted.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to go through every roster to like.
How about
find-
Kirk? What's Kirk's sense of humor like?
Non-existent. I feel like it's funny.
No,
for
I won't
him,
rip
but-
him. Just
Yeah.
he is.
He's a dad. He's a Minnesota dad.
He is. If whatever gauge you're measuring on Kirk Cousins about anything,
Right in the
intensity,
middle.
always in the middle, which is good and bad. There's nothing wrong with that. It's always in the middle. You'll set him up for like a hardy har har. Hey Kirk, da 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 da, and he'll be like, yeah, pretty good. Take the bait, man. Give me one. But he's just that. And I can spin it to a positive. That's just not what he's there to do.
Right.
He's there to be the best football player and best quarterback he can be.
and he's consistent at that.
That
Yeah.
answer,
I think
that
that's
answer,
awesome.
That answer just sounds to me like he read the Minnesota Mauer media playbook from when Joe was here with the Twins.
Yeah.
But I think Kirk's,
I don't
more
think-
Kirk's more calculated.
Fair enough.
Mauer was just his personality.
Yeah,
He
he's
is-
just dead inside. I think that. I think
All right. So
Sorry.
with us talking about Joe Mauer, let's switch gears.
That's
Let's
my
go-
opinion, by the
Let's
way.
go Minnesota Twins. Let's touch base on the Twins being in spring training. Any specific storylines that you guys would like to touch on?
I just had one I wanted to touch on real quick. Was Rocco Baldelli coming out and almost acknowledging, "Hey, I have no idea how to manage starting pitching" in one of his articles with Twins Daily.
I don't think he said it in
Pretty much said, "Hey, I expect my starters to eat up more innings this year." First of all, are you buying or selling it? And second of all, with the rotation that we have, we kind of talked about the depth, right? They just got deeper. They didn't necessarily get better. They got deeper.
Yes.
With them getting deeper, is that going to have a profound impact on the team this year?
So I would say, as far as pitcher depth into games, I think he's going to try it. However, he doesn't understand that with a pitch clock. I think he full well goes into the season going, yeah, I'm going to have my pitchers go 7 innings. But what I don't think he gets is that with a pitch clock, pitchers are now working harder in a shorter amount of time, and they're going to get gassed faster.
100%.
So he might go into a game saying, yeah, Joe Ryan's going 7. Joe Ryan might be more gassed at the end of 6 than he was last year at the end of 6, but it's going to be the same result.
Two things. It took me 3/4 of last season to realize it because I was doing the same thing everybody else was. You know, they're pulling a pitcher and I'm throwing a hat at the TV going, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this?
Where were you watching these games at?
We have a special sneak feed at work. that we
Okay,
have.
fair
How
enough.
do you find Twins games?
Right. I've got a direct link to Target Field. We just have a sneak webcam on the roof.
There we go.
They weren't atypical. And as you're just watching the Twins, and that's right, we fall into that.
Yeah.
And if you ask me what's going on in the American or the National League any given year, I may or may not be able to tell you anything about it. I cover the Twins. I try to follow baseball, but I don't like. I was watching the spring training game the other day, and they said something about Paul Goldschmidt MVP. I was like, Paul Goldschmidt won the MVP.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like he's older than should be winning MVPs, but they weren't that far off the graph of starting pitching innings. And in the bubble of watching the Twins, you're going, this doesn't make any sense. So that's one thing. I think that is the trend, and I think that's where it's going. And I think it's because starting pitchers are now the quarterbacks of Major League Baseball. And if you have to sacrifice a win here, resting NBA players, load management. Load management. I was looking for the stupid phrase. That's a version of load management.
I hate it.
We need you to pitch every fifth game, but that's how we're going to load manage. The second part, I think, is every pitcher's not the same. And I think last year they were treating them the same.
Yeah.
Everyone, you're not going through that lineup a third time.
Yep.
If, throw it out there, Joe Ryan somehow becomes a guy that loses no velocity into the 6th, 7th, 8th inning, doesn't drop off as much in the third time through the order, they're not.
Let him go.
They're not. Puzzle pieces are not the same shape.
They treated them like cookie cutter instead of individuals.
Like Chris Archer was the average killer. Like even if they were normal on the how long can we leave a starter in, Archer would have blown that average up by only going 3.5 innings.
Yeah.
He's out of the mix. So does that change things too?
Sure. That's really all I had on the Twins. I'm not necessarily buying it. I want my pitchers. I agree. The pitch clock is going to be a massive difference. We're already seeing Carlos Correa's at bat, in the spring training game. Weird to watch the other day.
Did you see Max Scherzer use it
in.
for his advantage, though?
Yes.
What was it, a 9-second strikeout or something
Royce
crazy?
Lewis told me, because they did it in St. Paul.
Yeah.
And Royce Lewis told me, I hate it. Talked to him last year. He said, I hate it because you're just so conditioned from Little League.
Oh, yeah.
Pitch comes in, you step out, and you go, okay, 1-0. He just threw me a fastball. I know this guy likes his curveball. All right, I think a curveball's coming here. I'm going to sit on a curveball.
You're right.
You don't have the time to do the
But how long does
math
it
on
take in little? Like I played baseball until I was 17. You'd step out for 5
But
seconds,
you don't have
not a minute and a half.
But you don't have 9 gigs of advanced metrics packed into your head.
True.
Totally agree with you.
You know what? I've never thought of that aspect of it.
That's
the scouting report aspect.
Sure. No, I totally agree. But guess what? Guess what's going to come now? Now you're going to want
Play baseball.
Well, one, play baseball. 2, what's gonna happen eventually is scouts are gonna go, okay, what I need is a guy that's dedicated, much like football, to the film study. I'm gonna need a faster processor. You just can't be an athlete like Miguel Sano that gets in there and swings the bat. You're gonna have to be able to step out and run through that 9 gigs of data, get back in the box, and get a base hit.
Who it's going to help? Guys like fireballers.
Oh yeah,
That just shove. Fireballers.
Absolutely.
Well, their ERA, their opponent batting average are going to plummet.
So hopefully that helps our closer this year then.
Yes.
What are you hearing from pitchers around the league? Like, I mean, are you hearing them grousing about it on the side yet? About
I think some are.
Because
some are.
I worked at a
hate
fast
it, but
pace
some like it.
when I pitched, and I was 5-0 summer of '96. But
I saw your Facebook post this morning.
did, yeah,
and I knew it was coming.
Yeah,
I 100% knew it was
had to
coming.
work it in.
You know who I want to hear talk about it? And he won't, because he'd be the guy that'll tell you. Trevor Bauer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
the
I
analytic machine.
And doesn't care what people think about what he says.
Yeah.
Now, also maybe it's shown us he doesn't care what people think about what he does, too.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I'd like to hear what he thinks about it, because he'd be honest. Because everybody now is saying the company line. Well, it is what it is. We got to get used to it.
Yep.
I wasn't in spring training. We did have a crew, and none of those. Everyone just said it's a learning process. We'll get used to it. It'll become old hat.
Which it will.
That's easier.
It is
It's
the
gonna
company
affect-
line, but it is also true.
It will affect more guys. You know what? Like Rich Hill. What does Rich Hill think about it? He's been pitching for 116 years. He used to throw the ball with feathers in it back when he started for the Redlegs. What does he think about it? Because the younger guys, it's going to affect less.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
they're going to learn it, and they've been doing it in the minor leagues.
Right.
What does the 15-year veteran, Kenta Maeda, what does he think? Verlander, what does he think about it?
I think of like Nestor Cortez or like the guy or Johnny Cueto. You know how like they like
these
to
guys
screw with
that-
people on the pace, which I love, and I truly view that as like a next level. Like I can see more people incorporating that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And it's like I don't know. How about the other thing? Do you hear the players grouse about the shift rules?
No, because I think
Do they like it? Just more hits for them. I hate the shift.
There are way more players being paid for their bats than their gloves.
Yeah.
The guys getting paid for their gloves hate it. The guys getting paid for their bat. Max Kepler could have a career boosting year because of the shift.
And I think that's what they're waiting to see.
Yes.
I hate it.
And I think that's the only reason they didn't trade him.
100%. 100%.
I love.
That's a really good point. I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Because I was waiting for Kepler to be moved.
We all were. I think I'm going to like the shift. I think it's going to bring baseball back to baseball.
Thank God.
God forbid people learn how to like drop a bunt or hit the other way. I hate it. I hate it.
But it's going to bring back it's going to put more guys on base.
Yeah.
You're going to have.
Well, and that's the whole argument, right? Is baseball's boring because it takes too long and it's either a home run, a walk, or a strikeout,
and
right?
no one's ever on base.
So we need guys on base and we need the game to go faster. So
Yeah.
eliminate the shift, make the bases wider and bigger so more stealing happens, hopefully, or it appeals to that idea, and then put a pitch clock on it and make the game go faster.
And if they can just do robot umpires, I'll be happy.
They've shaved 40.
Ooh, that's where
Would
you
you
lose
really
me.
want that?
That's where you lose me. I'm with you every step of the way.
Speed the game up.
There's an appeal
would,
that
it would.
there's an appeal process that they've been trying where they just put it on the jumbotron using K-Strike.
Yeah.
And if the
Red light, green light. That's all we need.
Yep. And
Yeah.
what it is, I watched an at bat with Jason Dominguez last year for the Yankees. And what it is, if it's got to be an at bat deciding pitch. So if it's a called strike 3 or a called ball 4, and you're a player and you want to appeal it, they're going to run it on the jumbotron. And if you get it right,
Do you guys watch tennis?
Okay, the one argument,
They've been doing it for years.
I know.
Like this.
I know.
the one argument I have with baseball is
Oh, yeah,
baseball
get the beat.
to a point.
Don't
like
do this. Don't do human element on me here.
He's
I love
Mike.
it, too.
Mike
I'm with you,
doesn't.
Mike, I'm a traditionalist, and you know what? But you guys are making me realize I'm wrong.
very old-fashioned.
He doesn't like anything new. We got new intro music, and Mike hasn't looked at me the same
Because it's
since.
terrible.
If the umpires were doing their jobs, I'd be with you. But
Yes.
they're not.
They're not.
They're squeezing
Well,
pitchers.
can we get
Hurrying
computer
batters.
NFL referees then? Because
No,
they're
no.
even worse.
Yes.
We need to move into
They're way worse.
We need to move into basketball
All right.
before we completely unravel.
Wolves watch. Minnesota Timberwolves pretty much treading water. Up one, down one. It seems like. Anything specifically you'd like to talk about there? Are we
So-
excited for Cat's return?
I went to the first game of the season against the Charlotte Hornets
Oof.
the other
Bummer,
night.
buddy.
Oh, your first game of the season.
My first
Yeah.
game of the season.
Well, that was the good one.
Oh yeah. So I went and I watched the entire game, and the only thing that I can pull out is Ant is as good as advertised. LaMelo is ridiculous, and then the third thing that I came away with that game with as like a thought was, as much as we paid for Rudy Gobert, he provides nothing that you can't get out of utility players, and I think now it isn't. So he rebounds and shot blocks. Somebody's playing Walker Kessler, a guy that we drafted $500,000 this year.
I fell in love with.
Me
the
too.
One time I interviewed him,
Me too.
I fell in love with the guy.
I watched the game film and I said, this is what you needed. And instead they want to pay, $52 million a year for a guy that can't close ball games, for a guy that plays good defense, but right now does not provide any sort of athletic,
Anything?
intimidation or willpower or
He
emotion.
can't get up and down the floor.
He's a
Nick.
tall robot. He is worse than, the Houston Rockets had their struggles with Yao Ming as he aged. Rudy Gobert's worse than that right now. He's not worth the money you're paying him.
I had a teammate in high school. I played the 4 and he was the 5, and we played a zone defense. And when in position, this kid was 6'5" and clumsy and would just dominate. But there were times where I'm shoving this kid's hip to get him in position, and I feel like that's what Rudy Gobert is.
Yes.
Is they're grabbing his hand and pulling him up the court when it's an offensive transition, and he just slows everything down.
That's the problem. If you could trade Rudy Gobert for Walker Kessler and just the draft picks, not even the players back, just to get the draft picks back, you make that trade in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Kessler has been incredible.
You seen his per 36 stats? He's averaging 5 blocks a game.
Yeah.
He's been unbelievable. And
And he can run.
and that's the hard part. And I think I'll do the negative first. I think if you're a Timberwolves fan, you think it'll all be fine when Carl comes back.
Nope.
It won't. Because remember what this season was supposed to be.
Right.
The season was, we're going to run this counterculture offense. It's 2 bigs that no one does anymore. We're going to make it work. And it may take us some time to figure it out. How many games are left in the season? 17?
It's going to be 15 games by the time
It's not going
he
to
comes
be
back.
it's not going to be figured out.
Nope.
So now that gets kicked into next
Well,
year.
what was it? 30 games in? They were 14 and 16, and they were still figuring it out when Cat got hurt.
Right. And whatever work went into that is gone.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's going to work. I've heard a lot of people that know basketball a lot better than me. Charles Barkley the other night said, I don't know how this works. So, okay, now if this year was to make it work and we get to the play-in and get routed, I'm saying we as if I'm Tim Connolly.
You could probably do a better job at this point.
Well, then what do we do at the end of this year? Do we continue this? Do we move? You don't have the time to see if this experiment is working. It hasn't been able to incubate yet. So unless something crazy happens, I have a buddy of mine that's been in my ear, trade cat. And I've been telling him all season, you're crazy.
2 years.
You
2
can't,
years.
You're crazy. You can't do it. And Connolly, that's a white flag. Connolly does that. He's immediately under the gun. Like, what are you doing?
Sure.
I'm coming off that now a little bit because you have to do something and you can't move Rudy.
It's culture.
Here's the thing. Standings wise, we've been better without Cat.
Yeah.
Points wise, we've been better without Cat, and points against wise, we've been better without Cat.
And minus the ability to close, we have been better. Like emotionally, the team has been better without.
Healthy.
They might be bad, but at least it's the same team every night. You get Cat out on the floor. Sometimes you don't know if you're going to have 4 guys pouting at the 3-point line or 5 guys playing hard.
And that's the enigma is how D'Angelo Russell fit into the whole thing because he should have been exactly what you needed when Cat went out.
Yeah.
And he wasn't.
Right.
And Mike Conley's kind of the last thing you need with Cat. Now, once he comes back, Conley can be that,
Pick and roll
at the
facilitator.
yeah.
and stuff,
But I feel there's way too many people, I think, saying once Cat comes back, this thing will click. I think this year, it ain't going to happen. You look at the West, they're not going to sucker punch anybody. They just don't have, unless Ant somehow can be super Ant for
7 games.
A run
5
of-
games, yeah.
To be honest, there is a path. I'm the glass half
Do
full.
not.
optimist.
Do not.
Okay. So we're 2.5 games out of the 4 seed. That's
Stop saying this. We're 3 games out of not being in the playoffs.
it. No, we're
less.
a game out of
My
being
point.
out of the playoffs. So we're 2.5 again. Glass half. So you can be the half empty your entire life. That's
I'm
fine.
completely
gonna
empty on the
go half
Wolves.
full. You get into the 4 spot, you get the Warriors possibly in the first round, and we do have a good matchup against the Warriors. Then you're the 4 seed. Moving on, what happens now? You got home court advantage. You're in the second round of the playoffs.
I'm with you on
Probably
this.
like the Kings or Grizz.
If they have any shot at advancing, they need to not be in the play-in.
Yes.
100%.
Play-in is coin toss, and if somebody has, if Ant pretty much has a bad night, they're
You're
hooked.
done. Yep.
But then even if you get out of that, Denver, Memphis would be interesting because who the heck knows? But coming out of the play-in, you don't.
I'd take Memphis in a 7-game series. I really would. I'd take them without Cat. Actually,
They look better against them this year than they certainly did in the play. Obviously in the playoffs.
I just don't think Josh can attack the rim with Rudy down there like he did against us last.
Does anybody at this table think the Timberwolves have a shot at making it past the top 2 teams in the West?
Well, technically the Grizzlies are the 2 seed, and I said yes.
Okay. How about the Suns?
Nope.
Not anymore.
Then guess what? Starting to make your plans now to move off Rudy or Cat or whatever. That needs to be in motion because you're not winning an NBA championship this year. And if you're not trying to win an NBA championship, you should be making moves to win an NBA championship.
That goes back to friends of mine that do another podcast program in town that work in my building. Making the playoffs and being competitive should not be the goal. Winning a championship is the goal, and you do whatever you can, and that's a paradigm shift.
That's a very good point and a great way to end our Minnesota Sports Roundup. So, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Why don't you let everybody know where they can find you? And hopefully we're going to be able to get you back before too long.
Biggest thing I'll plug next week, State Boys Hockey Tournament. It is my absolute favorite thing in the world. I have covered Super Bowls, World Series, All-Star Games, everything. The Minnesota Boys State Hockey Tournament is my favorite thing every year. Next Wednesday until Saturday, we'll have it on Channel 45. I'll be hosting some of the games. We put so much work into those broadcasts, and it's just an absolute passion for me. If you're sitting at home, even if you're not a hockey fan, throw it on because those kids are going to impress you. It's not about us. It's about.
Do you have a team you're rooting for or pulling for?
The answer to your question is yes.
You're not going to say it live on air, are you?
I love it.
That's cool.
I can openly say, let's go Huskies.
Sure.
I'm rooting for the repeat. So,
Plausible deniability is always a good thing, right?
yeah. Well, Chris, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
That was
Absolutely,
Thanks for having me
man.
in here. This place is amazing. I love it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, man. You're welcome back anytime. We love having
It's
you.
the man cave I wish I had.
That's what we built it to be. If you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. Yeah, Gabe will be able to prop the door open for you and clean up at your own leisure, man. It was absolutely fantastic to have you with us. We're just going to keep rolling.
Thanks,
so.
fellas. Keep up the hard work.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thanks, man.
All right.
Well, let's transition. So we have some stuff we got to get through ourselves. NFL Tag 'em or Bag 'em is going to be our first segment. So we're going to talk through a few contracts that some NFL teams have coming up. We're going to intro with some quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson and Daniel Jones. What would you do with them?
Yeah. So, and I'm sure Gabe's working the graphics in the back here. But so pretty much, and has anything? I just want to make sure first. Has anything popped on either one of these guys? Because I did not check the tags.
I haven't checked this morning, but I can.
Okay.
What was that question?
Lamar Jackson and
no.
Any news?
Gabe's Mike's looking it up. Gabe, can you get the graphic up? Sorry, I got everybody mixed up right now.
So 12 hours ago, ESPN reiterates report that Lamar Jackson wants a fully guaranteed deal. He's looking for that Deshaun Watson deal, and he is not going to be getting it in Baltimore. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, Baltimore's never been the franchise that is going to pay for the quarterback position. They won Super Bowls, but they did not, outside of Joe Flacco, who they were kind of forced into committing to after his run, they just don't pay that position. They'll pay the running backs, they'll pay the defense, they'll pay the receivers, they'll pay everybody they need to. That is definitely, that's not who Baltimore is. Likely going to be a tag 'em, but it'll be a non-exclusive, which is going to allow Lamar to go ahead and get his money elsewhere, find his own home.
I as much as this pains me to say, I do agree with you that I think Lamar Jackson will be the starting quarterback for the Miami Dolphins in 2023.
Hey, by the way, we're going to run that clip when it happens.
I'm getting that up right
somebody better get me my receipts, because I said it at the beginning of last offseason. But then when it comes to Daniel Jones, I think you have to tag him regardless of what he wants to be paid. Just if I'm Brian Daboll, as good as he was last year, he's still young enough to warrant a tag and see, okay, can you duplicate the performance? If I put a higher price tag on you, which is going to limit us, and you don't produce the same, at the end of next season, it's done. But then Brian Daboll gets to move on to a new quarterback. He kind of gives himself a new life. This was a guy that he didn't draft. You know what I mean? So, and it gives him a chance. There's only 4 quarterbacks at the top of this year's board. You still got to pay Saquon, who we're going to talk about here in a second. You still got to retool at wide receiver. You still got to finish getting the offensive line healthy. You can do another year at Daniel, just don't commit to him long term.
Yeah, you better not commit. Like, what does he want? 46.2 or something?
Yeah, he wanted $45 million.
Not a shot in hell, Daniel Jones.
Not a chance.
I'd maybe tag him. I'd personally be looking to. I would have traded him, to be honest, in the middle of the season, because now you're getting no value back for him because he's not under contract. So it's probably the Lamar treatment, non-exclusive tag, looking to move him, to be honest with you.
I just don't know if there's a home for him if they give him the non-exclusive. I just don't know if there is.
That kind of shows you what he is, right? There's 15 teams around the NFL right now that would love an NFL quarterback. And if you can't trade Daniel Jones to any of those 15, what do you have?
Yeah. No, you
have nothing. Don't give this man any money. If you want, I'll do it for $10. Reach out. DM us. Running backs, Tony Pollard.
So in the running backs category, we have Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, and Josh Jacobs all eligible for tags this year. In my opinion, I don't think you tag Saquon. I think you just pay him. If you're not going to pay him,
you tag him.
Health, right?
Health.
So that was my argument for Tony Pollard. Saquon somewhat
Tony
fits.
Pollard's going to get let go.
Really? So you're going to bag Tony Pollard, huh?
I don't think they have the money to do anything else. I don't think they have the money to tag him if they wanted to.
That's a good question. I mean, that's a solid point. But then that's another situation where can you go non-exclusive on him? You know what I mean?
Tony Pollard?
Yeah.
I literally
trade him?
think that they have the money to do it.
I don't know either. That's a guy I'd be interested to have in the
I think Josh Jacobs gets a true
deal.
Yeah,
because
me too. He is the backbone of that Raiders offense.
I would agree with you. So look at maybe Tony Pollard gets moved. Saquon Barkley gets a franchise tag because of his health, and Josh Jacobs gets a deal. Stays long term in Vegas, right?
Yep. Tight ends, Dalton Schultz and Evan Ingram.
Yeah. Why don't you take this? I'm going to make sure that the TV doesn't shut off on us right here real quick.
So I'm going to go Evan Ingram first. Had a great year last year, resurgent year last year. I personally would actually sign Evan Ingram to probably a 2 to 3 year deal. I think he's a good fit for Trevor Lawrence and that Jaguars offense. And I think he's a safety net for Lawrence. So keeping him around for 2 to 3 more years would be a good thing. Dalton Schultz, That's a tough one for me because the Cowboys are in money trouble. I'm going to say bag him because there are other tight ends that are coming out. There's a guy from Notre Dame that's going to fall right around where the Cowboys are looking to pick this year. I'm going to say bag Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, I'm likely tagging Evan Ingram. I want to see.
I said resign him, like give him a deal. Give him a 2 to 3 year deal.
Here's the thing with that offense, they're going to have the tight end is going to be expendable in the next couple of years. Let's take a look at Jacksonville's situation.
He was such a safety net for T-Law this year.
Totally agree with you, but do you want to commit the type of money you'd have to commit to him? As a guy who's more of a wide receiver, so you're leaning more towards wide receiver money than tight end money. When you can tag him this year, go, okay, with Calvin Ridley back, with us likely drafting a wide receiver, which adds 2 new weapons to the offense. Christian Kirk is already there. Etienne is a year older, and Trevor Lawrence may not need a true safety blanket like that. Like, can he begin, can you start to transition away from him and spend that money elsewhere, on a tight end? That I would just like to see. Plus, he's only got 1 year where his production has looked like that. I'm likely tagging him knowing I have the money to do so and reevaluating in 12 months.
Fair enough. Others that we want to touch on. So Jordan Poyer, Orlando Brown, and who's James Bradberry.
The Orlando Brown thing for me is a no-brainer. You have to keep him on roster for the Chiefs. He has made such a difference ever since that game where Patrick really was running around against the Buccaneers defense in that Super Bowl. Him coming over from Baltimore was absolutely huge. But Jordan Poyer, I think, is a bag-em kind of guy. I really do. That defense.
This is really cool, Nick. You got 2 highlights playing at the same time.
It's tripping me the fuck out.
Awesome, dude.
Like, for real. I truly have been marveling at it. I think it's cool as hell. It's novel. I like it.
Thank you. So I think he's a bag-em kind of guy, and that's because they're going to be in cap purgatory here soon with these bigger contracts coming in, and more than they need weapons, they or perimeter players, speed guys, they need meat. Running the football and stopping the run has been the issue for the Buffalo Bills. So is paying Jordan Poyer really the answer to that question? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think he's a cap casualty.
Me too.
I think he's a great safety and will land somewhere, but I think he's a cap casualty with Buffalo. So
I would agree.
And James Bradberry, he's gone for sure.
Yeah, I don't think the Eagles are going to be bringing him back, do you?
Not a shot in hell. All right, so we have about 15 minutes and about 7 segments. So rough math, that's about 2 minutes per.
Well, we're going to give a little more time to the UFC. There's a couple
roughly 2 minutes per.
I gotcha.
NFL noteworthy news. So this enters our noteworthy news segment.
That's right.
Where we're going to talk about news.
That's
that
noteworthy. Yeah.
I love that. You knew where I was going with that because I'm a nerd. Bears dilemma.
What do you do with the number 1 pick?
Chicago Bears are supposed to pick number 1 overall. They have a quarterback. What do they do? You know what I'm doing if I'm Ryan Poles?
What are you doing?
Well, first of all, he probably won't do this because legitimately I could probably do a better job at running that team.
I would agree with you.
I'm trading back with Houston at 2, so they can move up to number 1. And then I'm also trading back to number 3. And who's at 3 again? Carolina?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm switching with Carolina. There go your first 2 quarterbacks. So there go Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Now you pick the defensive player that you wanted at 1, but didn't need the value that 1 brings. To bring him in, right? It was Jalen Carter until 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So now I would legitimately look at even moving back further.
The thing with
because you're just going to accrue. Here's the thing: the Bears are. I'm going to use our first cuss word that puts us on late night cable here.
Okay.
The Bears roster is so fucked.
It's so bad
that it's like a 4 to 5 year rebuild project. That if you can take the number 1 overall pick and turn it into 17 picks over the next 4 years, that's the way to do it. Because if you can trade back to number 2 and get 3 picks, and then trade back to number 3 and get 3 picks, and then trade out of the top 10 and get 7, you know what I mean? You have a quarterback. You have nothing else.
The Bears actually find themselves in a position where I think they can become the anti-Houston Texans. And I think they can actually rebuild. And I'm not talking just like a competitive team. I'm talking like a culture. They're getting ready to move stadiums. They've got a new head coach. They've got a new GM. as unpopular as it may be, were you winning football games and competitive with Justin Fields? Yes or no?
No.
What are the odds that you're going to be competitive with and successful true Super Bowl contenders with whatever that number 1 pick is going to get you? I trade them both. I would move off the number 1 pick and I would trade Justin Fields. The amount of draft capital Chicago would be able to attain over the next 3 years would allow them to go fully analytical. There's no more cap problems. You can bring in whatever free agent you want. You're not beholden to any specific quarterback. You're going to be able to take 2 or 3 solid swings at this, while, like I said earlier, Green Bay is in a down year. Minnesota is incredibly volatile. You don't know what you have in Detroit. When we got to the end of the Viking season, I said sometimes there are tough decisions to make. This would be the toughest decision that Chicago has ever had to make. But the odds that you get it right doing it that way versus trying to do 1 foot in the grave kind of thing are way better.
I personally disagree with that because I do strongly believe that Justin Fields and Jalen Hurts are very similar quarterbacks. And Jalen Hurts was supposedly an MVP and brought his team to the Super Bowl this year. I do think Justin Fields could do the same thing if surrounded by talent.
I'd have to see an Ohio State quarterback win a playoff game first, or make a playoff game, because not one in human history has.
All right. Jalen Ramsey likely to be dealt.
Yeah, I thought this was really interesting. There's going to be a lot of teams that could look at him as, and I think he's still a true.
This doesn't strike me as surprising. The only, here's the thing: the Rams bought all in.
Oh yeah, and they did it.
So much money towards that 1 year,
and they did it.
So now these contracts are falling off, right? The most surprising thing out of Los Angeles for me is the fact that McVay is still there.
Yeah, right.
Because this was expected. Yeah. I knew this was going to happen. Aaron Donald is probably going to be the only guy that they actually truly keep throughout this entire downfall.
Cooper Kupp likely too.
Maybe, because they might choose to keep Stafford over him.
Maybe.
Can you guys explain to me? So I'm actually, because I don't follow it as close, I've seen all this McVay, whatever, kind of just that he's on the hot seat, and I've just kind of been marveling at how is he on the hot seat already? But I've never dug in deep to it.
So he came in, they had an average year, I think his first year or something, and then that second year they basically spent over the cap.
Yeah.
To bring in Jalen Ramsey and Matthew Stafford. They did the Matthew Stafford move. Yeah. And they did all these things, right? And they basically took their financial future and said, screw it. We're going to win the Super Bowl this year. And they did, and they went and won the Super Bowl. The next few years, the Rams last year were 5-12.
Yeah, they're bad.
They were fucking
and have terrible. I was thinking it was 1
and
year
have no draft capital,
but it's 2 years removed.
It's 2 years removed.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing the big names that helped them win that Super Bowl. Their contracts are he's due $17 million, and they can't afford it.
Yeah. Well,
they're it's the Patrick meme. I have $3.
Yeah.
They legit are $15 million away from this deal, or 10 million away from a 15 million. They're falling off these big names, right?
Yeah,
right.
So with that, I'm surprised that McVay, who had a shot to leave, his contract was up, and everybody thought that he was going to go into ESPN for a while. He might go do ESPN for 5 years. And
everybody
go back
thought he
to
was
coaching.
Everybody thought he was going to take Brady's spot if Brady didn't retire.
Yeah, or do different things, right? And he re-signed and said, "No, I want to continue to be the coach of the Rams."
Yeah,
knowing full well, if you have a knowledge of NFL and how the NFL is super cyclical and everything, the Rams are going to suck for a year or two more, if not 3 or 4.
Yeah,
and he basically signed on for that ride.
And so, how much can you get for Jalen Ramsey right now? Do you think if you're calling the Rams and what is it? Les Snead picks up the phone and his report, and you're like, "Hey, I want Jalen Ramsey." You tell me what.
I would say, legitimately, if I'm Les Snead, realistically understanding my cap issues, I would say I want a second for the next 3 years. And a 5th this year or something like that.
3 seconds and a 5th.
Because it keeps me out of the first round cap hell.
Yeah.
It gives me good talent.
Yeah.
And it gives me a lot of I need play. I'm genuinely concerned the Rams aren't able to dress 53 guys.
Yeah. No,
that's how little of money that they have.
That's a very legitimate concern.
And I don't know what they're going to do to have a full roster come August.
It's a very legitimate concern.
So, yeah, I'm looking for, can you give me 7 players? I just need guys to put in my jersey on game day at this point. because that's where the Rams are.
Yep, I would agree with you there.
With that, let's transition to UFC. Is it 285?
It's UFC 285, and it is this weekend. It is the return of John Jones, and I am so excited. Are you excited, Mike?
My phone just dropped out of my pocket, but I think Cyril Gane is going to knock him out.
Really?
No, not really.
Yeah, I didn't
Not
think
really.
so either. So UFC 285 will be this weekend.
Get you good, though.
The 3-year hiatus for John Jones is over. He returns at heavyweight. Gabe, initial thoughts on this fight, seeing him come back?
I think it's fascinating how Cyril Gane's standing in the media has fucking plummeted over the last, just from him saying that thing about how he's lazy.
Yeah.
It truly, that started a firestorm.
Yeah, he was the one who came out and
Absolutely.
said that he only trains when he has a fight coming up, right? And otherwise
Yep.
he's lazy as hell.
Fucking telling. You know what I mean? It really is. And now you just view him as truly, because the whole knock on him is he's sort of softish and a little bit, actually, what's weird to say one-dimensional, because he's obviously is a great striker and all
Right.
that. But what's he going to do against John Jones wrestling is really hard to understand.
Yeah, I was watching. I've been watching a ton of the media for this. I've been watching a lot of pre-fight, post-fight, a lot of the lead-up from John Jones' stuff, all the UFC embedded. I'm trying to get a glimpse at what John Jones even looks like at 240 pounds, right? Because nobody truly knows until he sets foot inside the cage. But everything that I'm seeing from John Jones' side of camp is he did this perfectly. They measured everything that he was capable of at 205 and said, hey, we're not returning to the UFC until I can do everything at the same speed and intensity for 5 rounds at 240. When he was ready to come back, he was really ready to come back. We've talked about this kind of like with the Alexander Volkanovski thing. You can't just jump up a weight class. Your body needs to adjust how to wear that weight over 25 minutes with another guy laying into you. Does Cyril Gane present some issues, maybe some new challenges for John?
Cyril Gane, doesn't he walk around at 260?
Yes.
That, I think, is going to be the storyline.
Well,
I know John Jones punches hard. I get that, and I get that his length is a deal breaker.
Yeah.
However, John Jones walks around. This is from a few years ago, because Matt was telling me that John Jones and I actually walk around very similarly.
Yeah.
At about 6'4", 6'5", 205, 215.
Yeah.
To go up to 240, even if you've been at 240 drinking creatine and protein shakes and keeping that weight on for 3 months, it's an effort.
It's not 3
for
months.
your body to keep.
He's worn this weight now for almost 2 years.
Okay, it's still hard.
No, I totally agree with you.
Because it takes effort out of his day every day to keep that weight there, because that's not his natural weight.
Absolutely, but I think what I've noticed when I'm watching all of this media is it has been the one thing that I've truly seen focus John. 205 John Jones, crazy man, wild man. Didn't have to prepare for fights. He's like, I'm just going to cut weight, outreach everybody, and be a creative striker. I'll wrestle if I have to, fight over, no questions asked. He knows now going to the heavyweight division that it is a challenge, and even his interactions with the media, the things that you're seeing, just the way he carries himself around other people has been super, super genuine, and it's impressed me to know, and he seems very calculated. I think he's going to come in and make quick work
All I'm saying
Cyril Gane.
is I think that's the storyline, that's a 60-pound difference. And I get that they're meeting in the middle, but...
Yeah.
Hey, guys, I just, Nick brought up something and said it's the first time we get to see John walking around at this. Can't wait to see his physique. So that made me, I was like, well, we got to be getting close to that. Maybe there's something.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it. He just doesn't have a six-pack.
I was going to say, I mean, I had my mind blown by this, and I got to say, I'm whatever. So here comes John before.
Yep.
Wow. Specimen.
Yeah.
Here we go.
And they've said he's a true heavyweight, but
So the heaviest I just looked it up. The heaviest he got in his move to heavyweight was 267 pounds.
yep.
Is this not funny to either of you? That
No.
belly? That looks absurd to me comparatively.
Well,
I know he's in great shape.
That's
I'm
not
just
real,
saying.
right?
No, that is real.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, what?
That's John
Yes.
Jones. That's what he's going to look like when he steps into the cage at
Finally catching on here. I was fucking jaw dropped. He's got a belt.
Yeah, he didn't put on good weight then, Nick.
Now, I know
I'm sorry, I would disagree with you wholeheartedly.
Look
know
at
that
the
you
weight that he
can.
put on.
Yeah, I still believe he's going to nail.
He doesn't even
tool him.
Is that the stripes on the shorts? Okay, so he does fill out the shorts. Sorry, the striping made it look like his legs were too skinny.
That's impossible not to look at the dick print in those shorts.
Stop it. That's not what he was talking about either.
Oh.
But listen, I
I was looking at
understand.
the striping on his thigh to see if
Yeah.
he filled out the short.
Now listen, as a guy at one point, and I'm not comparing myself to John Jones fighting regardless. Listen, I was a guy who graduated boot camp at 168 pounds. At my heaviest, I was 220. Regardless of how good a shape I was in, at 220, I was still running a 7-minute mile. I was still plenty mobile. I played ball with you
But you
at
at
220.
190 could have kicked your ass at 220.
I don't know about, but
I don't think it makes
and
a
that's
difference
first of all,
at
that's
all.
not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That gut right there is unavoidable when you make that kind of weight change. Sometimes just because you can walk up to him and hit him. I guarantee that's solid. I don't think he's walking around with flab on him.
I agree. It just looks like it, and also we all know that fat
Jeez.
truly does not affect the way you fight like that. Like, I mean, usually it's heavy muscle is way worse, right? So
Exactly.
I mean, here's
so
the
I
thing.
believe
though.
he is ready. I'm
He's
just
40
laughing
pounds
at how
heavier,
it looks.
Nick, and his arms look a little bigger.
I don't know.
His legs look a little bigger. His chest and belly look bigger to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I know enough about human kinesiology that is concerning.
I'm not even concerned.
I actually
in the
think he did it
slightest.
right.
I think he did it perfectly.
Well, I guess we're about to find
We'll
out.
see. But I mean, I think he's going to put Gunn on his back.
I did.
And that's just gonna be the fight. Like, I mean, it's I don't even think this is gonna be a very good fight.
I don't think this makes it past the third round.
No.
I think
I don't believe
it's going
so
to be
either.
very painful to watch. I went back today and I wanted to watch Cyril Gane's most gruesome knockouts, like his most jaw-dropping
doesn't
finishes,
do that.
right?
Well, even in this picture, he looks better. Where'd
Right.
it go?
Oh, the one that you were looking at. Yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so he's got a little belly, but dude,
That's a side profile. You can't in
I'm just
tight
saying,
shorts.
It just doesn't. Okay, so I just saw a different picture from the Sun, Gabe, and like his arms look significantly bigger.
Oh, yes.
His legs are significantly bigger, and his chest is actually bigger, stronger, and he's barely got a belly. So that picture is actually a really poor picture of what he currently looks like right now.
I would agree. But yeah, I think John Jones is going to come out and try to put hands on him, and if he can, he will, and if he has to wrestle him, he'll wrestle him. But this does not make it past the third round.
I got a couple predictions.
Okay,
he's
go
gonna
ahead.
come out. He's gonna do his butt slide to come out. John Jones will,
Yep.
or like his creep, whatever.
Yep, the crawl.
Yep, the crawl. And then I believe that I think the real bet in this fight is will Gon quit or be submitted? Like, basically, will he look for a door? Like, will it be a pussy submission? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Where like he just does it right away.
Yep.
I want to know if he quits because that will really tell if the way he like he'll be out
Yeah.
of UFC soon.
This is as weird as it sounds for a guy as young as Cyril Gane, for a guy who 12 months ago we were considering to be competitive with
The next
Francis.
generation, right?
If he comes out and looks poor against John Jones, he'll never main event another pay-per-view. He'll probably never get another title fight.
I won't say never, but I also think that if he comes out and like he can get beat, but
Yeah.
if he quits, like
Right,
looks
no, yeah,
lazy,
that's what
whatever,
I'm saying.
He'll be out of UFC in one more fight or two
Yep.
more fights or
Yep.
something. Yeah.
Then we've got Shevchenko, who's going to be defending her belt. I don't think this is much of a competition.
It hasn't been with her with anyone. It feels like.
Yeah,
I don't
she's
know her
a
history enough.
human buzzsaw who just does really bad media.
Yes.
She deserves to be touted like one of the greatest of all time because she is. One of the most violent of all time because she is, and she's just not.
Well, you know how sexist I am.
Let's not go there.
And well, hold on. And what I was gonna say is, and she is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like she is awesome.
Yeah.
Very whatever. I really like watching her. Truly, she's awesome.
And then the last one's going to be Bo Nickel.
Awesome.
Bo Nickel, to me, has the potential in his weight class to be what John Jones was coming up. If he truly falls in love with the art of striking, with his wrestling background, he is going to walk through everybody he faces. Everybody. Bo Nickel is a warrior. And him being American Top Team is the place where they breed that athlete. Kamaru Usman, high-level wrestler. Colby Covington at one point, American Top Team, high-level wrestler. Gilbert Burns, high-level ground game. and then they teach these guys how to strike, and they just become war machines. And he's looked really good on the fight nights that he's been on, so I'm excited to see him in the pay-per-view.
He's the American Hazmat Chimaev.
Yeah.
Like, he is the new guy who's coming out, calling out everybody.
Yeah.
And they say that he's got the same gym legend kind of stuff, where, like, he's just, whatever, taking veteran guys as a new one and twisting them up.
Well, I
watched him do a jiu-jitsu match with Gordon Ryan.
Okay.
And Gordon Ryan is just the unequivocal GOAT.
Yep.
And, they did special rules, but what impressed me is that, because, Nickel never had a chance, and he did lose, and it wasn't his area, but how he was game. How he absolutely did it. And, he made a nice showing of himself. It was not, he suplexed Gordon Ryan huge. Like, it was actually really impressive.
At the pressers the other day, John Jones said he walked up to him and told him he could take him down.
Yeah. And I believe him.
Me too.
Yeah, just that sort of swagger is awesome. And it's so, as hard as it is for me to root for redheaded people, I got to root for him.
Mike said you're looking at houses.
That's gross.
No, I'm not looking at houses. I was just waiting for you guys so we can move on. Aljamain Sterling versus Henry Cejudo.
Yeah.
Look at me getting better, by the way. Set for 288.
Yeah.
I did not know that they were fighting.
Yep.
I do now that you say it. I remember.
They are fighting at 288. The fighter that will stand in, I think, is what makes this fight the most intriguing, which is Sugar Shane is likely going to be the standby fighter for that title fight, because Aljamain Sterling has a history of injury issues, and Henry Cejudo, I don't think anybody's aware whether or not he can still make that weight cut.
I didn't know that he struggled to get to weight like that. That's a thing of his.
But with retirement and how big he got over the last couple of years where he has been out, it does concern me. So I think it's the right thing to do. No matter what happens, you're going to get a banger of a fight. Either guy drops out, Sugar steps in on either side. You still have an incredibly interesting thing going on. It likely still needs another title fight. I know we'll just roll right into it, Benel Dariush and Charles Oliveira on that card, but I don't think that fight draws because Benil does like the worst media outside of Shevchenko in the UFC. The guy has no pull. The guy has no pull.
Yeah, it's incredible how much he truly genuinely feel bad for the guy.
Same, because he has
he
earned
deserves more. Yeah,
100%. He's earned the shot that he's getting. And there's a good chance that he even beats Charles Oliveira, but I don't give a shit about this fight because he doesn't have any draw.
Right. No,
doesn't have any draw whatsoever.
It's true. And I don't think he's going to get those shots that he wants either. So, yeah, he's going to be last in line all the time.
Well, I think we need to let the fans know what they think about UFC 285 coming up this weekend.
Yes.
So let us know what you guys think down in the comments. And we'll transition over to NBA for our last story of the day. Damian Lillard. It's Dame time.
It's Dame time.
For 71.
So you want to hear a real interesting story?
Sure.
I'm standing in my apartment as this game is occurring, and I'm just cleaning. And at first
I already know this didn't actually happen, but go ahead.
Oh, stop it. So I've got my TV pivoted and I'm washing dishes, and I saw Dame's first bucket. And I was like, oh, that was kind of crazy. And then every time I looked up, I shit you not, for about 30 minutes, Dame put the ball in the hoop. And then all of a sudden I took my headphones out as I'm done vacuuming or whatever. I put everything away and I sit down, and he was at some ridiculous mark at halftime. So I sat down and just watched the rest. To put this into perspective, in 760 games, which is roughly 600 games less than what 650 games less than what LeBron James has played, Damian Lillard is further along on the NBA all-time scoring list than LeBron was at that point, at 62nd. Let's say that right now, Dame plays another set, has a LeBron-type career, Kobe-type career. He plays for 20 seasons, right? Which is going to give him the games that he needs. You know where he's projected to finish all-time on the scoring list right now? Third all-time, above Kobe. Right now, he's on pace to finish with 35,417 points. The guy is the most underrated player of this decade. He is the most underrated player of his generation. He has underrated range, ball court vision, the ability to distribute. He's a decent defender, and he has piggybacked his franchise since the day he got there. I'm sorry.
Well, I think that's why he's been overlooked his entire career is because he's been in Portland, right?
Right.
He hasn't been in New York or Orlando, or not Orlando, or I don't know, Boston,
Right.
Miami. That's kind of what I meant. With
Anywhere
Orlando.
but Portland.
Can we trade him for Cat?
Yes. I was just about to say, we were talking with Chris Long about a move that makes sense for the Wolves. Getting rid of Karl Anthony Towns and adding a secondary prolific scorer.
Did you do that?
No.
Gabe pulled that
Yeah.
quick?
That was
Goddamn
pretty
right
good.
I did.
Damn, Gabe.
Damn, Daniel. But that is a move I would 100% do because
I don't know if they would do it.
good point. But
I wouldn't if I was them.
No.
you just watch a scoring performance like this where Dame's pulling up shooting logo free throws and you
Right.
go, "Oh, that's different." And you don't get to see him a lot. So when you get to watch it, you're like, "Oh, okay.
Isn't he, by all accounts, just a great guy, too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
I wanna
awesome in the
date him.
community."
Yeah.
In his free times, he does music. Like the guy is just the most. I love Dame. I
Me too.
feel bad that he is likely going to waste his entire career in a city that refuses to put championship level talent around him. Refuses to. Like there are few situations. I will say this. Aaron Rodgers' situation wasn't ideal in Green Bay for a long time because there were years where the defense just wasn't there. But at least they put it together every once in a while for him to make a run at. Portland hasn't even fucking tried.
It's pretty brutal.
It's
but
bad.
Congratulations to Damian Lillard for going off for 71. That is all that we have for you guys today. That was a great show, man. It was great to have Chris in here.
Yes.
Thank you. And if you are a sports fan with sports fan friends, make sure to like and share on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, Patreon, and Twitch.
There we go.
You can find us on cable here in the Twin Cities area on MCN 6. That's paid or public access programming.
There you go.
Right there at the end.
There you go.
And then you can find us through your Roku app
Anywhere.
outside of that Twin Cities
Anywhere.
through MCN 6.
No excuses. The sports train chugs along. Me and Mike will be back with you guys next Thursday to
Barring
cover
a snowstorm.
barring a snowstorm, which hopefully we will get no more of. Fingers crossed. But we will be back with you guys next week to get a little bit more information on the Vikings as they inch closer to the draft. The Twins will be that much closer to the regular season, and the Wild and Wolves are going to try to pull themselves up to the top of the Western Conference standing. So tune back in for some Minnesota sports review. Of course, we will also be recapping all of the UFC events until as they come. And we do have news on Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Davis that we will be covering with y'all next week. Until next time, stay safe, take care, have fun.
Damn it, double
little early.
fucking god damn it. Bad show. It was
Right
good.
there, bang, and
Now it's bad. Fuck it. Let's blow the whole damn thing up. Had a casualty with the dancing guy.